What's up, everyone? So excited that you're back here briefly for this video. I appreciate all of the new subscribers, but I also appreciate the family that continues to come through, show love, continues to show support, and I appreciate all of your encouraging and kind words. I really, really do. Um, Today, I just wanted to talk about grief. And as you can see, the topic is to grieve or not to grieve, right? Well, I was thinking the other day, we've recently just had Father's Day. Before that, Mother's Day. We have a lot of birthdays. Even holidays can make way for a lot of emotions and feelings of loss that we must experience. And I was like, so many times we don't really go into depth about grief. We know what it is. We look at it, surface. That's the way we look at it. Um, but I just want to briefly come to you to just briefly talk about to grieve or not to grieve, right? So when we think of grief, we often think of those that are no longer physically here, right? We think of those who have passed on or something has happened that led to their demise, and they are no longer physically on this side, if you will. A lot of times you may have sought counseling. You may have attempted to research some things online, or you maybe tried to suppress that which felt too overwhelming to even be able to face, right? Now, I've often told you, y'all know my profession. If you don't and you're new to the channel, I do practice where I provide psychotherapy. Um, I'm a resident in counseling. And so I practice providing therapy to those who have serious mental illnesses, dual diagnoses. So yeah, everything that you see in the DSM, um, I do provide the best sound therapy that I can. And so oftentimes therapists will tell someone, hey, stages of grief, and you're just going to have to go through those stages, as if it's this matter of fact thing, right? As if it's some sort of destination, if you will. Well, even though I do come from that clinical perspective and being a professional in that field, I also am a realist. And the truth of the matter is, it's not a destination. It's not something that you can look a little ways ahead and see the finish line for when those overwhelming feelings of loss are going to expire. It doesn't work that way. Man, if it did, right? Things would be so much easier. The beautiful thing is I just encourage you to be patient. Start off being patient with yourself. May take tuning the voices of others out. I don't know all of your spiritual beliefs or your religious belief systems, any belief systems that you cling to. But I do know from my experience, a lot of times in the past, people will just say, hey, just trust God. And while that is true, do the symptoms of grief just go away because you are trusting God? Is it that you are not trusting God by having these symptoms of grief? No, both things can be true, y'all. And that's why I say just be patient. Don't try to rush through your grief. You know, um, for some, it looks totally different. People will say, man, are they even grieving? They don't look like they're grieving. Well, hell, who even made the standard of what grief even looks like? Sometimes they are doing the best thing that they know how to do, and that's avoid. Because to have to face it is much too great for them in this season or in this moment, right? And that is all right. They will get to that place where they're ready to begin that grieving in due time. Don't rush them, don't rush yourself. Just allow to happen what happens naturally. And in time, whatever that looks like, you will learn how to better manage. You will learn how to better cope. A couple of techniques that I've utilized with those who have come to the facility that are in crisis due to grief, right? One is I always encourage them to write a letter to that person. Obviously, we know that it's not like you can drop it in the mailbox and it's going to get to them, but it's really not for them, y'all. It's for you. It's for you to be able to process and say the things that maybe you didn't get a chance to say, right? Or that you always wanted to say. The closure that you may need to fully begin to process that they are no longer physically here. Another technique that I've used, and some of you may do it as well. Like I said, it kind of depends upon the belief systems that you may have, but just talking aloud to them, that can be helpful for some. One technique specifically I do is empty chair technique. And not only do I use that with those who are experiencing grief, but I also use it with individuals that have experienced significant trauma in their lives and have had experiences that, just did not allow them to say all that they really wanted to say. And so, it can definitely be very healthy for them to engage in that technique. Like I said, it's not for the other person, it's really for you, right? Mindfulness techniques can be very helpful, especially if this is something that is recent. If it takes being distracted, being busy, if that is what you need at that time to cope, please do that for yourself. Like I said, it's your journey. No one knows it like you did. It's your book. And you do have the power to write your own narrative. So as much as people may mean well when they say, come on, just work through this thing, you may not want to, and it's okay. It may not be the time, nor the hour, or the moment that is safest for you to do so. So I just want to give you that space and grace to honor that which you may need at this time. Let's look at another standpoint of what grief could look like. What if you are grieving the person that you feel you used to be as opposed to who you are today? That happens so often, more than what is really discussed. Like I said, I've seen things like that several times, where individuals will come in and they may have had something as recent as retirement, and they just no longer know what to do. Their routine has been disrupted, right? And so they feel as though I used to be this person, and I used to be like this, and I used to be like that, right? Let's take it a step further. What if you've experienced something traumatic or a negative situation or several situations that you feel robbed you of who you are? I want y'all to think about that and really listen to the verbiage I just used. You feel that they robbed you of who you are. And while we validate that feeling, that we don't feel as though we are that same person any longer, while we validate that feeling, of the grief and longing for that person that we see that we once were and are no longer connected to. I encourage you to have hope, because I promise you, it's not that person, that part of you, those strengths that you have within, that they're just totally gone. No, 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 no. Mm-mm. They're there. They're just dormant. They're lying dormant right now, y'all. What has happened is that situations and life and these negative experiences that you've had to go through have now become louder in your ear than that part of you that holds the hope or excitement or any of those other strengths, the wisdom. I don't know, I'm just calling out things. Everybody's strengths are different. But it's just those experiences may keep replaying in your mind, or they're just so loud in your ear all the time. And so because they're so loud, then the part of you that holds these strengths are whispering. Well, guess what we're going to hear? We're going to hear that part of us that has gone through all of these traumatic experiences and situations. And that's the part that is going to resonate for us. So I just encourage you to recognize, and hopefully you are receiving this, that those parts that you grieve, they're still there. It just may look different now, right? You may say, well, Cameron, it's things I can't do physically anymore because of such and such. And while that may be true, I can often come up with a longer list of things that you can do, right? Just a different spin on things, a different way to look at it. Sometimes we get so caught up in the chaos that we aren't aware of those things that have been right there before us all this time, right? Because life in itself can be chaotic. Relationships can be chaotic. Speaking of relationships, what if you are grieving a relationship? Because grief doesn't always have to mean that someone is physically removed from this earth, as we know them. No, it could be a relationship, a person, a connection you had to them, a friendship, right? And you may grieve that because they may have held values or different things that, familiar things that they had about them that you were like, yeah, they my bestie, or, we're like sisters, or we're like brothers, we like family, or it could actually be family, or it could be an intimate relationship, right? That you may be grieving. No different than the space and grace that you give yourself when someone physically is no longer here. No different than the space and grace you give yourself when you are grieving who you feel as though you once were, or careers. Is the same space and grace you need to give yourself when relationships have ended, connections with others have ended. Just a different way to look at it, y'all. Like I said, it just came to me with all these holidays, coming up where, people do experience a lot of grief, or the grief may become louder, right? They've gone through the whole year and they felt it, but then this holiday comes and the grief is just louder. So that's what made me think of just doing this brief video. I look forward, as always, just to hear, your thoughts, your feedback, anything that resonated for you as you listen to this brief video. As always, I appreciate each and every one of you. If you ever want to donate to the channel, I've included all that information in the description box. I thank all of you for your continued love and support, your kind words, your encouragement. I'm grateful for all of you. Remember, we're all doing this thing called life for the very first time, y'all. Be gentle with yourselves. Give yourselves that space and grace in whatever area you need. Be blessed.